Personally, I find World War One much more interesting and fun to learn about than World War Two. And I'm not sure if that's a popular opinion or not, but I'm kind of a bit bored about learning about World War Two. And the reason for that opinion of mine is because, well, it's the same principle as to why I don't want to cover American history on this channel. I've gotten recommended, hey, you should check out this, Civil War series, and I'm kind of like, eh. And I mentioned it before that I'm not really interested in covering American history. It's there's a saying, and forgive me, there are certain words I have trouble saying because, believe it or not, I actually do have speech problems. I didn't learn how to properly speak for until I was 9. Believe it or not, I had really bad speech problems. So certain words if I say weirdly, but there's a saying called familiarity breeds contempt, and I think that kind of applies to American history and World War II. It's because, for those of you who can't tell, I'm American. I was born here in the United States my whole life. I've only left the country like 2 times, actually 3 times in my life. Um, and we learned a lot about American history, obviously, right? Like we know, throughout the whole entire education system, through all my grades, we always cover a lot about, American history, the founding of our nation, the revolution, and the presidents and whatnot. And behind that is World War II. We learned a lot about World War II. We've covered so many. There's so many movies, too, about World War II. Like endless movies here in America about this period. And I think all of that kind of contributed to me just I'm so familiar with the Second World War that I'm like, I don't want to cover it on this channel. Um, Same with American history, So those are the two topics I'm kind of I kind of want to cover things outside of America and outside of World War II. Everything else is free game. The only time I cover American history was in the oversimplified Civil War videos, but that's about it. Um and yeah, this is just a long-winded way of me saying that I really love World War One. I developed a fascination for it during high school. It actually kind of stemmed at the same time I became obsessed with the French Revolution, because we learned actually a bit in my sophomore year of high school about the French Revolution, and it was around that time that I really kind of became such a of interested in World War One, and I remember having friends who kind of shared that same sentiment. So yeah, and I don't know, I think this is just such a unique war because this was kind of the advancement of technology, right? Because Europe before World War One hadn't had I mean, there were conflicts obviously, but not a big war, because from after the Congress of Vienna, there's the idea that Europe was at peace for 100 years. Though there were conflicts, but there wasn't a huge thing, and then this happens, and you see the advancement of technology, the introduction of the tank, the brutality of trench warfare, chemical warfare. It kind of shattered the. It really did kind of. It was kind of a weird, sobering thing that kind of reintroduced a lot of people to how bad war is, but also stepped it up because we saw just how we've advanced with technology and just oh, this got really bad, really ugly. I think of the haunting picture, I believe, that was taken during this time of the shell-shocked soldier. And wait, let me show you. Yeah, the idea of shell-shockedness. You see this famous photo of this just very haunting face of this soldier, and there were obviously people looking into it and just yeah, there's just so much to this war as you see, how things advance and just how things were changed in the face of Europe forever. Like, I've heard it said that this was also the end of the Empire era or age, because after this war, also, like, the Ottoman Empire fell over and many others, the Russian Empire, just so much change. It's almost like in just one conflict, just it's insane, the First Great War. And it's just interesting when you think about the wave it kind of sent that changed everything. And this is about to sound really confusing, but this channel called EDJ Reacts is actually the second EDJ Reacts. I actually originally had this channel over a year ago, and I was actually posting a lot, but I wasn't posting history reactions. I was posting like reactions to other, YouTube stuff, and I was growing pretty well. I hit around like 30 subs, and then I deleted it because I wanted just to focus on my main channel, Edwin de Jesus. And a year ago, I made a new channel, this channel with the same name, EDJ Reacts, and only difference is I've only covered history content on here. And in the original EDJ Reacts part number 1, I actually got recommended. This was the first history video I ever got recommended because I was reacting to I forgot what I was reacting to, just something, and then some person was like, "Hey, you should watch Epic History World War One." And that's the first time I heard about Epic History. I was like, "Oh, sure, I'll get to it," but I deleted the channel, so I never got to it. Now that I've basically made this channel and only react to, history stuff, it's almost like this has been years in the making, me finally watching this, and, yeah, I'm actually really interested in seeing this. So, yeah, in 1914, a lot happened. Obviously, it's the beginning of the war, right? And, the big thing about it, or the big event that, famously kicked it off was the death of Franz Ferdinand, and this caused, Austria-Hungary to basically start beefing with Serbia. And, basically, once that conflict started, Austria-Hungary became close with Germany and basically like, hey, help us, because, there were treaties and alliances between the nations, and, that's everyone started jumping in, and, Germany joined, and then, like, that it became a problem because Russia joined, on the side of Serbia, and then, many other nations jumped in, like France and Britain declared war on Austria-Hungary. And I kind of like this conflict because I feel like it's a bit more gray. Like in World War II, I think we can all agree, hopefully, that Hitler's the bad guy. Nazi Germany was out of control, and Hitler basically became the main antagonist of life. Nazis are bad, everyone needs to beat them up and stop them. That's kind of, if you really want to, that's kind of it, though. World War One, I kind of like that there's a bit, it's not just that, though Germany does get punished really severely, and kind of treated as the bad guy, but there are bad things that happen, like in this year, I believe the rape of Belgium happens, which, is an infamous event. And yeah, just I kind of like that there's not just, oh, one guy's obviously the bad guy, everyone has to stop them, like World War II kind of is. By the way, I don't mean to say I hate World War II. I'm just like, when you're kind of familiar with something, you're kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. Like that's kind of how I am when I'm like too familiar with something, I kind of lose interest. And that's unfortunately how American history and World War II come. Not to say it isn't interesting or that I hate these things. It's just, I'm just not interested in covering them, you know, on this channel. I kind of want to cover things I don't know about, or, you know, I haven't had too forced, maybe not forced is not the wrong way to put it, just too exposed to, you know? And yeah, overall, like I said, I'm really looking forward to this series. This might be the longest intro of all time I've ever done without getting to the video, so we should just get right into it, don't we? The original video link is down below. Without any further ado, let's get to it. Let's watch World War I, 1914 by Epic History.
The great powers of Europe are divided into two rival alliances, the Triple Entente, France, Britain, and Russia, united by fear and suspicion of Germany, Europe's new strongest power.
Yeah, I'm glad we kind of watched the Otto von Bismarck series from Extra History, you know, because it's kind of like almost a prelude to World War I, yeah, where Germany just showed up and we saw how the Germans, you know, just wrecked France during, you know, the Franco-Prussian War. And funny, interesting little fact, I have relatives in Germany. My family has a German wing because my grandfather's sister moved to Germany, and so we have German relatives. So yeah, I have a weird connection to Germany and Europe because of family. But yeah, there's kind of the thing of power, right? Like, I believe Napoleon was kind of the last dude to make most of Europe his. Like, there's a French hegemony, I believe is the correct word, you know, and there's always a sort of obsession with with the balance of power in Europe after Napoleon, right? And making sure one nation doesn't overcome. And Germany was rising fast. They were becoming such a formidable force, as we saw with the Franco-Prussian War, their unification, and just how frightening it is, you know, and how they become such a force to be reckoned with, not only in this war, but the second. So, yeah, just, you know, insane.
And the Triple Alliance. Germany, which fears encirclement by its rivals. Austria-Hungary, clinging on to a fragile empire. And Italy, seeking gains at French expense. The spark comes on the 28th of June in the city of Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is assassinated by a 19-year-old Slav nationalist named Gavrilo Princip.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that Franz Ferdinand's car routes were, like, announced, which is, like, dangerous, right? Like, but, still, I think what's funny about his assassination is that they threw bombs at his car, but I believe they missed, and it ended up blowing, I believe, the following car after him. And then, basically, after that, you know, he, for a moment there, kind of hides, but then I believe he wanted to visit the people who were hurt, you know, by the explosion, and I think his car just happened to be near, you know, one of the failed assassins, and just like, oh hey, there you are, just shoots him. Like, he could have literally gotten away, which is the insane part, you know, he could have went away, but yeah, it didn't work out so well.
Austro-Hungary accuses its Balkan rival Serbia of having aided the assassin and sends an ultimatum demanding humiliating concessions. Serbia rejects the ultimatum.
I believe the ultimatum wasn't actually ever meant to be accepted because they made like a lot of outrageous demands. They wanted war, right? But I guess the ultimatums, I'm speculating, was supposed to what? Give them a better view, make them look better, like, oh hey look, I tried, you know, to make peace or whatnot. I don't know.
And Austria-Hungary declares war. Within hours, Austrian forces are shelling Belgrade. The Russian Tsar, Nicholas II, feels honor-bound to defend Serbia, a fellow Slav nation, and
yeah, there's a lot going on in Russia, and Tsar Nicholas, who I sometimes feel really bad for these monarchs, you know, like King Louis during the French Revolution and Tsar Nicholas. I don't think, they don't strike me as like awful people, but they did do, you know, they were really bad rulers, and at the end, I want to feel bad for them, but at the same time, they're subjects, you know, the Russian or French people were suffering, you know, starvation and the economy, and it's like, I want to feel bad for you, but you also, your ability to not rule well caused a lot of people to die, you know, so it's like, a part of me wants to feel sympathy, but a part of me is like, yeah, I could see why the people got rid of you, you know, it's like, at least he admitted he wasn't, like, I believe in his coronation, he was like, I'm not fit to govern, at least he acknowledged that, but unfortunately he tried to keep all the power after that, that's the problem, and people died under their watch, and yeah, that's why it's kind of hard. Like I said, I feel torn. A part of me thinks he's not. I don't know. He doesn't strike me as an intentionally evil guy, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna stop. Let's get back to the video.
Orders the Russian army to mobilize. German Emperor Wilhelm II has promised his support to Austro-Hungary. He and his generals see conflict with Russia as inevitable, and the sooner the better, as Russian strength grows year on year. Russian mobilization is used to justify German mobilization, followed by a declaration of war on Russia. Germany knows war with Russia means war with Russia's ally, France. It has developed the Schlieffen plan to meet this threat of a war.
Yes, the Schlieffen plan. Yeah, I remember learning about this during high school, so I believe we did learn about this in class, but either way, you know, Germany, you never want a two-front war, right? And their plan was quickly take out France, then move on to Russia. And, you know, it didn't work for them, because France held the ground, and yeah, it didn't work for Germany, to put it nicely.
War on two fronts. First, its armies will advance rapidly through neutral Belgium to encircle and destroy French armies near Paris and win a quick victory. Then its forces can move east to deal with Russia, whose huge army will take much longer to mobilize. And so Germany declares war on France. 6 million men are now marching to war across Europe. Italy, however, remains neutral. The terms of the Triple Alliance don't bind it to join an offensive war. The United States also declares its neutrality. President Wilson and the American public have no desire to get entangled in Europe's war. Britain is France.
I love how there's the trend of America through the first two world wars. We're neutral until we're not, you know? You know, we stick out of it until we decide to actually join, you know? Which is funny. And yeah, sorry, it's just something me and my friends used to kind of laugh about back when we were learning about this.
France's ally, but at first it's not clear if it will join the war against Germany. But when German troops invade Belgium, whose neutrality Britain has guaranteed, an ultimatum is sent from London to Berlin, demanding they withdraw. It's ignored, and Britain declares war.
You know, interesting thing about Britain, I don't think it got involved in, like, mainland battles after the Napoleonic Wars. I think there also was a time, it was called the Splendid Isolation, I believe. I learned about this a bit recent, though. And yeah, Britain was kind of, like, not waging war on mainland Europe until, like, this. So, you know, that's interesting.
Join large-scale battles with military vehicles. The online action game War Thunder has received a major update.
Gosh darn it. Yeah, sorry, I'm just double-checking myself. I say these things, but I'm never confident. Yeah, the Splendid Isolation was basically the diplomatic practice of avoiding permanent alliances, but I think the rise of, like, Otto von Bismarck and Germany and several factors basically, you know, led to Britain and this. I'm usually pausing now to fact check myself, because I don't want to look too much of an idiot when I'm talking, you know? But I do remember, yeah, Britain stayed out of, you know, the mainland Europe, at least in terms of war, after the Napoleonic Wars. Then again, I could be wrong about that either. I could have sworn that a video mentioned that. Well, either way. Either way, let's get back to this.
A British expeditionary force lands in France, while the German invasion is held up for crucial days by Belgian resistance at the fortress city of Liège. German troops commit several massacres against Belgian civilians. The atrocities are inflated by Allied propaganda and help turn public opinion in neutral countries against Germany.
Yeah, like I mentioned in the beginning, there's also, like, what, the Rape of Belgium, I think is the event called. Yeah, and, you know, obviously the propaganda really villainized Germany a lot, especially after this, like, especially with how punished Germany got after World War One, you know? And, you know, I will say this event didn't help. This event did not help, you know, make Germany look that great. Also doesn't help they have the pointy horns on their helmet, the point on their helmet, because that also kind of gives off a villainous look, doesn't it? So, yeah, it doesn't make them look like the good guys. So this propaganda machine against them, in a weird way, they kind of fed it with, you know, their look and actions there.
France, unaware of Germany's great encircling attack, launches Plan 17, an offensive into German territory. But in the Battle of the Frontiers, they're driven back with enormous losses on both sides. The British Expeditionary Force clashes with the German army at Mons, but the British are heavily outnumbered and soon join the French in retreat. The Allies make their stand at the River Marne, 40 miles outside Paris. Their desperate counterattack saves the city and drives the Germans back. Both sides suffer 250,000 casualties. The race to the sea begins as both sides try to outflank each other to the north. A series of clashes leads to the First Battle of Ypres, where the Allies desperately cling on and prevent a German breakthrough. There are more heavy losses on both sides. The two armies then dig in along the entire 350-mile front, seeking shelter from deadly machine gun fire and artillery shells. Trench warfare.
Yeah, like I mentioned, trench warfare is so ugly. Like, I remember reading about this, it's just, you know, sometimes they wouldn't even make great progress on land, like, sometimes, yeah, because no one wanted to go in the firing range that was no man's land, I believe is the term that was, you know, it's referred to, and sometimes they would fight just for a little bit of land movement, which is insane, you know? just trench warfare is some, like, I just remember learning about it. It's just some of the worst. Like, I really feel for these soldiers, you know, these men who had to go through this. Just awful. What an awful experience, you know. And yeah, also just the largeness of armies, right? How armies have grown so much larger throughout the era, and just, you know, bigger armies, more casualties. Like, this really was kind of like a weird, sobering, like, oh yeah, war sucks, you know? And we cover a lot of war. We basically only cover warfare on this channel. That's the history I like looking at for the most part. Learning about battle tactics and strategy. Like, I'm a nerd for this stuff. And, you know, it's cool, like, oh, you know, watching Napoleon, watching Caesar, watching Alexander win great conflicts and outmaneuver their enemies and so on and so forth. But, you know, every once in a while, we're gotta remember, yeah, war sucks. And these are, like, you know, people just dying and being murdered. And, you know, war, yeah, obviously it goes without saying it's bad, you know, but yeah, sometimes it's just good to remind yourself and just see the stuff and be like, oh yeah, these people went through a lot, you know.
Has begun. British warships win the first naval battle of the war at Heligoland Bight, sinking 3 German cruisers. Britain has the most powerful navy in the world, 29 modern battleships to Germany's 19. They now impose a naval blockade on Germany, preventing contraband goods, including food, from reaching it by sea. The aim is to bring Germany's economy to its knees and force it to surrender. But a week later, the British cruiser HMS Pathfinder becomes the first victim in history of a lethal new weapon. The submarine-launched...
The submarine, yes. That's... Man, like I said, there's so much that happens here. I mentioned, like, the first tank was introduced here, but yeah, the submarine as well. And also, you know, a ship sinking in 1917 is what caused America to join. So, you know, submarine attacks, of course, but, you know, either way. Yeah, it's just, man, like, so much, you know, so much new... In a weird way, this war kind of introduced a lot of new weapons, didn't it? A lot of new, you know, I guess, warfare things, which also just kind of increased the scope of death and suffering in war, you know? So it's, like, just insane. Also, you know, air warfare around this time kind of took, you know, was used a bit more. And, you know, I think it was in 1911 that, like aircrafts were being used beginning... Wait, let me double check this before I rant on. Yeah, so I think, like, air warfare, it says 1911, used by the Italians against the Turks near Tripoli? So I guess that's when, you know, aircrafts kind of being... But I also do believe it was being implemented a lot during this time, you know, World War I, and so that brings in a completely new stage. Before, it was just land and sea. Now, the air, like, where else are we gonna fight? Only space next, right? Wait till we start having space, you know, wars through spaceships. That's gonna be where war has to evolve to now, right? Like, like, it's freaking Star Wars, but, you know. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start pausing a lot more to double check things, because I'm never confident when I say things. Even when I get things right, I still never feel confident. I don't know. But either way, I'm glad I'm actually pausing to talk. So, yeah, just like I said, the advancement of technology is insane.
Torpedo. German submarines, or U-boats, have a surface range of 9,000 miles and can attack undetected from beneath the waves. They herald a deadly new challenge to Britain's command of the seas. On the Eastern Front, Russian armies invade East Prussia, but they blunder into disaster at the Battle of Tannenberg, where General von Hindenburg and his Chief of Staff, Erich Ludendorff, mastermind a brilliant German victory, taking 90,000 prisoners and destroying an entire Russian army.
Yeah, Russia did not have its best moment during this war, and you know, Russia was already kind of having issues. Like, shortly before this, they had the war with Japan, right? Tsar Nicholas got them into a war with Japan, which they lost, which kind of shows that, yeah, you know, they were a bit behind in some areas of warfare. Eventually, they have to pull out because, you know, the revolution happened, right? The overthrow of the Tsar, Lenin, and you know, communism, and yeah, eventually Russia, there was a lot going on with Russia, you know, yeah, during this time, that, you know.
The Russians contribute to their own defeat by transmitting uncoded wireless messages. A second massive German victory at Masurian Lakes forces the Russians into retreat. In just 6 weeks, the Russian army suffers nearly 250,000 casualties.
Man, you know, Russia's manpower is kind of amazing. Like, you know, I was thinking of World War II, which, you know, like when, you know, Hitler invaded Russia, and it's like, there were a lot of casualties, but then the Russians just bounced back and beat the crap out of the Nazis. And it's just, yeah, like, Russia, I believe, has the highest population, you know, if, from anywhere, I don't know about modern Europe, I do believe it has the highest, or one of the highest, so just their manpower is insane, you know. Keep pulling back until they just seemingly almost outlast you. It's kind of something I noticed, and, you know, like, yeah, insane.
Meanwhile, Austro-Hungary's invasion of Serbia suffers a humiliating reverse at the Battle of Tser. Austro-Hungary's offensive against Russia also ends in disaster and retreat, with the loss of more than 300,000 men. The fortress town of Przemysl is cut off and besieged by the Russians. The Germans are forced to come to the rescue, launching a diversionary attack towards Warsaw. It leads to weeks of brutal winter fighting around the Polish city of Łódź, but there is no clear winner. Meanwhile, the Turkish Ottoman Empire has joined the Central Powers, declaring war on its old enemy, Russia. Turkish warships bomb.
Yeah, this conflict between Russia and, you know, the Ottoman Empire is so interesting, because, you know, I believe it was in the Old Britannia video about the Napoleonic era that mentions Russia a bit, like, offhandedly about Russia's conflict with the Ottomans, and then I think during the treaty, Napoleon, you know, kind of gave a bit of a hint that they might help Russia with the Ottoman Empire. It's interesting. I recommend to watch some of Old Britannia's videos. But yeah, I wanted to learn a bit more about this conflict. I haven't got into it yet, but I actually do want to learn about, you know, Russia and their conflict with the Ottomans, because this seems like a really cool, interesting little, you know, conflict that's been going on. Like, you know, they've been against each other for a while, probably even further than the Napoleonic era. I don't know. If there are any good videos about it, feel free to let me know, because I am interested in learning about this little rivalry going on right here.
Bombard the Russian ports of Odessa and Sevastopol, while in the Caucasus, Russian troops crossed the Turkish frontier. Beyond Europe, the war rages on the world's oceans and in far-flung European colonies. German troops cross into British East Africa, modern Kenya, and occupy Taveta, while Allied forces seize the German colony of Togoland, modern Togo. But British forces invading German Cameroon are defeated at Garoua and Nsangakong, while a 3,000-strong force attacking German Southwest Africa, modern Namibia, is captured at Sanfontaine. A month later, British landings at Tanga end in chaos.
Yeah, I remember learning about just the European powers' complete, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Their complete assault on Africa. And what I mean by that is just how they cut it into pieces and just had it to them, you know, portions of which to themselves, which is, you know, yeah, which in the long run has created, like, yeah, basically the world at war everywhere. It's like, just the scale of war, how it's reached new, greater heights, you know? Like, it's insane. Yeah, this war, like, must have been such a huge wake-up call, right, to everyone. There's a book called All Quiet on the Western Front. I did some reading of it. I haven't finished the novel. There's a lot of novels I need to finish. It's just the problem is I'm like a university student at, you know, I'm an English major. I'm right now aiming to get my bachelor's in English. I only have 2 more semesters to go, fortunately. But yeah, like, I do a lot of reading of other things assigned to me, so I sometimes have to prioritize school reading over just recreational fun reading. So yeah, sometimes that gets in the way. Either way, let's get back to this.
And defeat at the hands of a much smaller German force led by Colonel von Lettow-Vorbeck. Cut off from Germany, Lettow-Vorbeck goes on to wage a highly successful guerrilla war against the Allies, tying down huge numbers of troops. In Asia, Japan honors its treaty with Britain and declares war on Germany. Japanese forces go on to seize the German naval base at Tsingtao. The German colonies of Samoa and New Guinea surrender to troops from New Zealand and...
I'm sorry that I'm laughing. I see Australia and I'm laughing. Did you guys see the Olympics? This might be one of the few times I talk about current events, but did you guys see the breakdancing? I believe the woman's called Reagan or something. I'm sorry. I've been looking at so many memes. Oh gosh, what's going on with the Olympics? Like, I hear the opening ceremony and just the complete debauchery of that. I didn't watch it, but I've seen some images and heard people talk about it. I'm like, I'm not interested in watching that opening ceremony. And then there's... Gosh, I hate sports. I don't watch the Olympics. I hate sports. I find sports the most boring thing ever. And I've been in sports in my life, like boxing, cross country, but I quit. I kind of gave up after a while because I don't like sports. I don't care much about it. But just insane. Like, what's going on with the Olympics, man? Like, you know. Either way, I'm sorry. Australia, you're not gonna live that down for a while. The breakdancing. I'm so sorry. I'm just looking at Australia. I'm being reminded of it. Let's cut away from Australia, please. I'm gonna laugh.
But in the Pacific, off the coast of Chile, German Admiral von Spee's powerful East Asia squadron sinks 2 British cruisers at the Battle of Coronel. Both ships are lost with all hands.
Just the scope of this is insane, man. It's like, man, you know, we've covered a lot of, mainly from the Roman era, you know, and the furthest we've gone, yeah, the Napoleonic era. It's just how war has grown in size and scale is just another terrifying thing, right? You know.
5 weeks later, he runs into a British naval task force at the Falkland Islands. 4 of the 5 German cruisers are sunk. Von Spee goes down with his flagship. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, British troops seize control of the Ottoman port of Basra, securing access to the vital Persian oil that fuels the British fleet. That winter, Austrian troops finally capture Belgrade. But the Serbs then counterattack and drive them back once more. The fighting in Serbia has already cost around 200,000 casualties on each side. In the North Sea, German warships mount a hit-and-run raid against English coastal towns, shelling Hartlepool, Whitby and Scarborough, and killing more than 100 civilians. On the Western Front, the French launched their first major offensive against the German lines. But the First Battle of Champagne leads to small gains at a cost of 90,000 casualties. While in the Caucasus, an Ottoman offensive through the mountains in midwinter ends in disaster at Sarikamish. Turkish casualties total 60,000, many frozen to death. On the Western Front, that first Christmas is marked in some sectors by a short truce and games of football in no man's.
Yes, the famous Christmas piece. Like, it kind of sheds a real, like, little bit of, I guess, levity and kind of, I guess, kind of like a really wholesome moment in an otherwise awful conflict, you know? You know, where the sides kind of just come together and it's like, hey, you know, peace for a bit. Like, it's really nice before they just get back to suffering, you know? And yeah, it's kind of like these little moments that are like, yeah, you know, us humans, we can be pretty great. We can also be really bad at times. You know, a lot of the time, but we have our moments, right, us humans.
Land, the killing zone between the trenches.
Wonderful first video. As usual, epic history does not disappoint. And yeah, I think I've talked enough, but I'm really looking forward to covering so much more because I really love these videos, you know. And yeah, I guess I have nothing else to say other than I ought to see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.